Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Finding Common Battlegrounds. This is the podcast where we try to listen to both sides. We try to hear everything out. It's not an echo chamber. It's about discovering common truth, which I've found over the years. There's quite a bit of it, and it's nice to see that we're not all diabolically opposed to each other. So tonight we have the usuals: Ryan and Josh, brothers in kin, but in many ways not, but in opposites in so many other ways. Related by blood, but that's about as far as it goes.
I'm guessing Josh is wearing a PETA shirt tonight. So for all of our listeners, Josh has become vegan. He is pro animal rights. And by that, do you want to clarify what your shirt means? And this is, of course, Josh wearing the shirt for his brother who isn't exclusively vegan anymore or vegetarian, but was a strict vegetarian for 10 years. What was your shirt, Josh?
It's kind of faded, unfortunately, but it actually stands for People Eating Tasty Animals. Didn't even realize I was wearing it. I didn't mean to troll you.
Did you buy that for Ryan?
My mother-in-law actually bought it for me. She thought that was my kind of thing, and I'm like, I don't know why everybody thinks I'm such a troll. In real life, I'm a pretty nice person.
What do you think? Says the guy trolling his brother totally unintentionally, which is true. It probably is totally unintentionally, but it's
this whole thing.
I got out of the shower like 5 minutes before the podcast, threw on the first thing I found, but I'll roll with it. Yeah, take that, Ryan, and all you filthy commies.
No, the fun part is I end up trolling people all the time, and I'm in person. I'm actually a pretty nice person as well, right? But in my professional discipline, if you screw up, I'll be nice to you. If you fudge your data or do something that's just demonstrably wrong, I am going to go at you hard, really, really hard.
Well, anyway, that's funny. Go ahead. Some people say that's
I'm a nice person. I forgive everybody. I turn it up for the podcast because that's literally why I'm here. But
just to get it all out, it's Fight Club for Josh.
What were you saying, Tom?
That's the whole dynamic of the podcast, the two of us fighting. But I get along with Ryan better than I get along with the rest of my family.
Well, that's a big thing, right? Is a lot of people are nastier online, right, than they are in person. And some people have attributed that to some of our breakdown is because so people are just nastier online, but the majority of their dialogue is online. Whereas in 100 years ago, you did all your dealings face to face, and you were nicer then. So I don't know. Part of one of the many issues we have today, modern day. Tonight we're going to be talking about people getting rich in Congress, and we'll be talking about that and what to do about it. And we will also be talking about it's a CNN. So CNN's basically the media's reply to some act of terrorism that we saw. So that's gonna be interesting. But a word from our sponsor, Lux Bidets.
Get yourself a Lux Bidet. Any good stories this time, Josh?
No, wishing somebody got shot in the mouth with a bidet or something, but I got nothing. They're good.
All right.
Everybody loves a bidet.
Get a bidet.
Before we jump into our topics, can I do a matter of housekeeping from a previous episode? I think it was 2 or 3 episodes ago. We talked about
fact check.
Yes.
I thought you were just going to pay up on the steak dinner because Marines are headed to Iran.
I might be. It's looking bad. We might be putting boots on the ground real quick. No, it was from the episode where we talked about Trump's administration being so racist, and Ryan brought up all these nothing burgers, and you brought up that song that was posted that's clearly so racist. Shout out to our nephew Corbin. A couple days after he had listened to the podcast, and we went to that book signing from author that Ryan and I both really like.
Oh, yeah.
And on the way, he's like, you need to listen to this song. So he turned it on. Ryan called it a bunch of creepy men chanting. Ryan has clearly never heard a sea shanty. It was just a sea shanty, you psychopath.
Oh my God, we'll have our home again. By God, we'll have our home. By blood or sweat, we'll get there yet. By God, we'll have our home. In our own towns, we're foreigners now. Our names are spat and cursed. The headline smack of another attack, not the last and not the worst. Oh, my fathers, they look down on me. I wonder what they feel to see their noble sons driven down beneath a coward's heel.
That's not men chanting. It wasn't like a bunch of weird dudes chanting in a circle and killing babies. It's a sea shanty.
What's a sea shanty?
Josh, you have no idea. Like, one of my favorite bands is Great Big Sea. All they sing is sea shanties.
Great band.
They sing. I know sea shanties. I love sea shanties.
Why did you say this was chanting? It's
because
a sea shanty.
Was. There's no music to it. They're chanting.
We listened to two different versions.
Okay, maybe there's a different version.
Okay.
The one I listened to was just guys chanting with no music to it at all. It was just like guys, rah, 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 rah. It was just chanting. And I was like, oh, okay, this is creepy. Whatever. Maybe there's another version.
Did you listen to the words?
For all of me and most of our listeners, what is a sea shanty?
You really don't know?
Like, this is what they used to sing on like ships, right? So like as they're doing different tasks on a ship, they would sing songs to like go with the rhythm, like they're throwing bags or they're doing something. But there are a bunch of bands.
Like that's a sea shanty.
Yeah, and there are a bunch of bands today that will basically turn those into like modern songs, right? So they're doing the rhythm and motion and kind of harmony of a sea shanty, but who knows what they're singing about, right? They could be singing about any number of things.
And so a personal note, when I used to play Valheim with Ryan and mostly his son, whenever we get in the boat, because it was very dangerous, I would turn on sea shanties. So we were Vikings listening to sea shanties, exploring. It was epic. It was fun.
I like sea shanties. Yeah.
You're saying because it's a sea shanty that it's like not like his Ryan was saying maybe it was like cultish or something, or
he said it was chanting. I haven't heard his version. The two versions I heard, they both had a little bit of background music, but it was mostly men in a harmony singing a sea shanty. And then I looked up the words with Corbin, and then I researched what it was about. It was just about the Battle of Seven Pines or White Pines or something. It was just a Revolutionary War battle. They were talking about taking their land back from the British. Like, there's a battle. The band was named after this battle. The whole thing was just these American dudes taking back land from the British. That's the whole freaking song. There was nothing racist about it. So we were listening to this going, this is such a nothing burger. So shout out to Corbin for bringing that to my attention. It was silly. I'm sorry, bro. That one was silly.
I think Ryan's point is that like it's been adopted by this group, right? Which is well known as a white supremacist group.
The idea of taking your land back from somebody, right, could be totally benign. It could be.
It was totally benign.
No, Josh, it could be, right? Or you could reframe that as we're taking our land back from Jews or from gypsies or from gay people, right? Who did that? Nazis did that. Nazis did that.
Okay, so we're all Nazis.
But do you see my point, Josh?
His administration's a Nazi.
Josh?
Yeah, I see your point. It's ludicrous.
No.
It's such a stretch.
Can you concede the point that it could be done? And has been done. It has
been done. I'll concede it has been done.
Perfect.
But for the claims you made in that podcast to say it's a bunch of creepy men and the song's clearly racist and it's clearly been adopted and it has racial overtones. Nope. Check nope to every one of the boxes. I had to bring that up because I went and researched the song that you said was such a smoking gun. There was nothing there. Maybe it did get co-opted by some obscure group, or maybe some liberal that was looking for racism when there was none, said it was co-opted by some group. That's probably what happened. It was a huge nothing burger. And the big thing was you said it was chanting. I'm interested to hear the version you heard. And I'm interested to see which version was posted by the Trump administration, because the two versions we listened to were actually kind of catchy. Nice little sea shanties. It's my new favorite song, and now suddenly I'm racist and hate black people. It's weird.
Well, yeah, I get Ryan's point. Like, if that's their anthem, right? Even if it had benign origins, right?
Sure.
And then we're adopting the anthem, then.
But I couldn't find any info on any of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I did one Google search on, that song being co-opted by racist groups. It came up with nothing. Anyway, sorry. That was just something I wanted to bring up because I thought it was silly and funny. Shout out to our nephew that listens. Let's continue on.
Well, should we jump
find the song and I'm going to drop it into the podcast so everybody can hear it, and then if it's not the song that you listen to, that would be really interesting, because I think that's one of the topics that we're covering tonight is we live in different ecospheres.
Yeah, if we want, we can jump into the second topic, and because it ties in. It's about immigration, right? And we're talking about that. Do we want to go there first?
Yeah, because that does tie in a little bit.
All right. Okay. Then this is really interesting. So I got a picture. That's just a picture of the guy. So I couldn't find the video because there's very clear video. It is really interesting, this whole scene that's happening. So there is a anti-Muslim protest going on in New York City. And this guy, and I guess it turned out that I think some of his family members were, I think, killed in Syria or Iran, Lebanon, or something like that.
Probably Lebanon recently, yeah. He
basically, the video I saw right when it came out, like the next day, it shows him clearly like running up. He throws this device, and then he comes back and he gets another one from one of like a friend of his, and then he like goes to throw it again, and then people start chasing him and they chase him down and catch him, and he gets arrested, etc. The bombs did not detonate, but like they were mismade or whatever, but they were homemade devices. I guess they had a whole bunch of nuts and bolts in them, and just gonna blow up and cause some mayhem. But the article. So what we want to talk about was this article that was based on this CNN's response, and there's a tweet. It makes me laugh every time I read this. It says, Two Pennsylvania teenagers crossed into New York City Saturday morning for what could have been a normal day, enjoying the city during abnormally warm weather. But in less than an hour, their lives would drastically change as the pair would be arrested for throwing homemade bombs during an anti-Muslim protest outside of Mayor Zohran Mamdani's home. Here's what we know so far. And then it's like a teaser into the article. And so this article is just talking about how CNN got a lot of backlash for this, and that it's sort of just like, oh, there were these two guys wandering in, and look, some crazy stuff happened to them. Like they were just minding their business, and not really, that they didn't quite frame it in the right light. That like, yeah, they made these bombs, they brought them, and we're gonna throw them at people and kill people, and But so they, CNN made a statement saying, "Hey, this was not accurate," and they made the changes, right? And so
after a whole lot of outcry and backlash,
yes. Okay, yeah. And a post regarding the two. This is what they stated: a post regarding the two individuals arrested for throwing homemade bombs outside of New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani's home failed to reflect the gravity of the incident, thereby breaching the editorial standard we require for all our reporting. It has therefore been deleted. So that's basically the story in a nutshell. But anyone want to talk about it?
Well, that's not the story in a nutshell. That was just CNN's silly take on it. Okay. I was listening to a podcast, and he went through about a dozen different major news media outlets that all reported this as either they weren't Muslim, or that it was an attack on Mamdani because he was a Muslim, or it was perpetrated by the anti-Muslim protesters. None of them reported that the two guys who they admitted they were styling this after ISIS, or they were doing this for ISIS or something, and they wanted it to be a worse attack than the Boston City Marathon, and they're Muslim. Like, this was a terrorist attack. They admitted that. None of these major news media outlets reported it as such. So here's one that said, bomb thrown at New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani's home, investigated as act of terrorism. That's not accurate. It wasn't thrown at Mamdani, and this says nothing about them being Muslims, right? There's another one. Well, so CBS reported that it was Jake Lang, who was the far-right provocateur. This was his fault, and they turned it into all about him, and he did it. They initially reported that
he was the leader of the protest.
He was the leader of the anti-Muslim protest, and this was his fault, and he did it. That's what they initially reported.
For provoking.
Who reported that?
CBS. Let's see. Aaron Kurtersky is the reporter for CBS that did that one. Another CBS reporter, Chanel Call. She said, identified Mamdani as a Muslim, but not the assailants. There were just two men, she repeated. Viewers could get a clue when the teens were identified as Amir Balat and Ibrahim Kiyumi, but Call blamed the incident on the anti-Islam demonstration led by Jake Lang. So a whole bunch of news media outlets made it look like the terrorists were actually the anti-Muslim or anti-Islam protesters. That's like, I saw a list of the news media outlets that did this, and it was all the usual suspects. They all, and even Mamdani, in his remarks, he came out later and said he didn't mention that they were Muslim, I think, and he mostly just talked about the anti-Muslim protesters and how terrible they are. He didn't really even say anything about these two Muslims that threw a bomb very close to his house. So the whole thing, like the spin on it's been absurd. It's been hilarious to watch, and so typical. And Ryan, we need to apologize to Ryan. He didn't really know why we wanted to talk about this.
Yeah. I don't think he'd heard about it.
Why?
I heard about the attack.
Yeah,
I heard about
any of this part of it.
Okay. What I heard, there were protests outside Mamdani's house. I heard that some people threw some bombs that did not go off, and that they were inspired by ISIS. That's what I heard. Mm-hmm. So, and again, let's see. I listened to NPR in the morning, and I listened to the BBC, and I listened to the Associated Press.
To just put your head in the sand and pretend like this isn't a problem.
Look, like,
so
okay,
weird.
Fine. You know, you can say that this is a huge problem. I heard what actually happened, right? So nothing that I just said was inaccurate.
I agree.
So this is why, like, when you said, "Oh, there's a story here. There's a story here," I was like, "What's the story?" Right? And then you gave me one link to somebody on CNN who got something wrong and admitted it, and I was like, "Okay, what's the story?" I just
gave you like 5 sources.
Right. Were all of those like breaking news, and then they backtracked and were like, "We got it wrong"?
No,
because that happens all the time. That like, hey, we just heard about something. Oh, we got more information. Oh, we got more information.
Everybody knew immediately.
When Charlie Kirk was
immediately.
Killed, right? When Charlie Kirk was killed, we had 47 different stories within the first 4 hours about who did it, why they did it, what happened. Like, it was all breaking news.
Sure. They caught these guys immediately and knew exactly what happened and why it happened.
These two?
Yes, they caught them immediately. There's video of the cops running them down after they threw the bombs and catching them. They caught them immediately.
And they immediately were like, "We did this because of ISIS." They said that.
Well, pretty quick.
What, Josh? Can you get Ryan to find? Can you get some common ground here?
I don't want common ground. He's an ostrich with his head buried in the sand. He refuses to acknowledge that the big schism in the country is this kind of bullcrap reporting, and he just goes, "It's a nothing burger." This is why we can't agree on anything left and right. Because
it's a nothing burger, unlike that song that I kind of mentioned, right? Like that was a nothing burger, and this is not a nothing burger.
Yeah.
Well,
How was that song relevant? Nobody had heard about it. Nobody knew anything about it. And some
So we have
rando looking for
racists
racism.
posting for the government, nothing burger. And then you have people getting something wrong in breaking news, and this is the news story. Do you see how it comes? Like, I'm trying to give you my perspective, Josh. Now here's the deal. If what we actually have, and I did double check, Mom Donnie didn't say much about these kids being Muslim, right? So he kind of glossed over that in his press briefing afterwards. Fair. I'm granting that. But if we have like 50 of the top news outlets in the country all saying these kids are not Muslim, they didn't do it, like it's not Muslims.
It wasn't misreporting facts. It was the way they all framed it. And they all framed it the same way.
Okay, but we've already had this conversation. Somehow you and Tom are absolutely convinced that anything anybody says ever is always going to be biased. Always. Like no one can say anything in an unbiased fashion. We already established that. We had an entire episode on it where I was like, I'm not sure I buy that. And you two were like all in. It's all bias all the time.
Well, you're outvoted 2-1. Just get on board. I thought that's how this worked.
Okay. I do want, there is like, I want to see if we can agree on anything, but I do have some overarching ideas that I want to throw out to both of you that I've been thinking about a lot. And so one of the things, I should have brought this up the last time when we were talking about immigration. I can't remember which article we were talking about. But it was the previous one, and it was the ICE stuff. But one of the things that I keep thinking about is this is my thought, is that I feel like being a racist is the most heinous sin that a person can commit. And when I say that, it's because it's a couple of things. One, that the media never wants to ever be dubbed as racist, and so things will be. I've seen many instances of this in the UK, but just like where they won't mention, or if they fail to mention like race or anything like that, even though it's a part of the big part of the story, right? Which is part of the motivation, and they're downplaying it. Like I've heard it with a lot of like gang rapes and things like that. And like, just some guys, and. Or they'll put a guy in a green jacket committed this crime, and it's like this clearly like an African guy, right? And it's like, but they won't say that part, and in this case as well, that it's like framed as, those are these guys, just a couple guys, these teenagers, but them being Muslim is a big part of the story. It's part of their motivation and their motive, But then there's this flip side of like, because we've done a couple podcasts of is Donald Trump a racist, right? And like, and even like, I think we did one on like Lord of the Rings. Is Lord of the Rings racist, right? And like, and it's like if you can pin someone as a racist, it's like the worst thing that you could actually do. Like it's worse than anything else, is what it feels like, and that. And I actually think, and I'll go even further with this, I actually think it has motivations to sort of like the revolution that we have today. So like someone was tying this in. I really like this idea. They were saying that the Bolshevik revolution was basically like the haves and the have-nots, kind of like the rich and then the poor, right? And it was like, hey, the merchants, and we got to take from the merchants because they have all this stuff, and we take away from them. And that was sort of the premise of that revolution, of the Soviet revolution. Whereas the one today is about race, and it's a lot about like colonialization, race, and this is that sin. And so it's been, it's like we tear down statues because they were slaveholders, things like that. This is like the worst sin that you could ever commit, and the framing is a lot around this, and it feels like. Yeah, like I said, the media is like, if you can accuse someone as a racist, that's the end of them, right? And if you can, and then you never want to ever be framed as a racist, so we kind of like we don't ever talk about that. I want to like thoughts on that. Like I'm off base. Is there something there? Is like that? It feels this way to me, and like I've been feeling this way for a little while. Thoughts?
I think you're dead on. I've been thinking some of the same thoughts, but at its core, it's a power grab because it doesn't make sense. Being racist, because what you said, and let me see if I'm clear on what you said. You're saying that being perceived as racist, that's what people are taught is the worst sin. When it's obvious, there are worse things you can do. Killing somebody is worse than being racist. Okay,
right?
But that's not the perception. So I agree with you, and it's a power grab because people are taught it's worse to be racist. And I'll give you two stories right off the top of my head that I just heard about. One of them is from this terror attack. There was a guy that was counter-protesting these anti-Islamic protesters there. I forget his name. I'll look it up in just a second. The bomb was thrown right over his shoulder.
I know what you're talking. He was responding to the anti-Muslim protesters. Yeah,
and he's saying, we love everybody. Everybody's welcome here. We love Muslims. The bomb's thrown over his shoulder and lands right in front of him. If it explodes, he's the first one to die. And he said, doesn't change anything. I still love Muslims. They're still the best. They're still everybody's welcome here. I don't care where you're from. Well, okay,
should it change
something
that though, John?
Yes, because that guy, if the bomb exploded, he's dead.
Okay, but let me just use your logic for a second. Let's say there's a Mormon.
Where you're going.
There's a Mormon who shoots somebody, right? Am I now entitled to say all Mormons should be kicked out of this country? They don't belong.
But that's not the question.
That's 100% the question.
No,
how are you making this different? You're saying two Muslims do something stupid, kick all the Muslims out. We should totally be racist.
Is that what I said? Is that what I said? That was
very clearly where you were headed. It's like there's a guy saying, "Hey, it's totally fine."
Very clearly where you're headed. We
like Muslims. Muslims are okay. And then a couple of Muslims throw some bombs, and he's like, "It doesn't change that."
Well, look what you just did. You just accused me of racism, anti-Muslim racism, saying that's clearly where you were headed.
Okay,
it's not what I said.
No, Josh, that's 100% what you said. You were making fun of the guy because he said,
"Did I make fun of him?
I'm still fine with Muslims in this country."
The words
and you're like, "No, that's not okay."
Part of that is laudable. That's what I'm saying. And you interrupted me. I said, partly that's laudable that he would do that. But
I don't think Tom, did he say that?
I started to say that and you jumped in. That's what I started to say. Good
My
night.
bad then.
I don't even
because it sounded to me like you were making fun of the guy.
Of course, because you've been programmed to think that anybody that disagrees with you is a racist and therefore the devil. And then I have power over them and then I can just shut them down.
That's like completely meaningless to me. I don't think that's
what you just did. That's literally what you just did. You didn't even let me get my thought out.
What I just did is somebody said, I'm not going to hold all of Islam to account for what two stupid Muslims did.
That's why I started to say part of that is laudable.
So you're on board with that.
You didn't even let me finish the thought. I mean, this is picture perfect. You didn't even let me finish the thought because if I even dare speak out, if I even voice an opinion about race, I'm a bad guy. That's what you just did. And then you said, that's clearly where you're headed. Oh my gosh. Even though you've known me my whole freaking life.
I'm going to play this back like 20 times.
Do it. That's what I started to say. Go play it back.
I'm sorry. What? Finish your thought, Josh. What were you trying to say?
I'm so disgusted right now.
Come on. What? To finish your thought.
I'm just confused. I don't understand what's going on here.
Here's the thought. I started to say, partly that's laudable, that even though he would have been killed, he's still saying, okay, we still welcome Muslims in New York. But at the same time, you can't finish that and say, but maybe we should screen them a little better. The ones that hate America and are going to be terrorists, maybe we should stop them at the border. Like, you can't even say that because now it's perceived as racist. Okay. And that's like Trump has this thing where we don't want immigrants from all these countries. And that's a growing thing on the right. We don't want, I've heard high profile conservatives say, we just don't want Muslims in the country now because we can't trust them.
That was an elected representative who said Muslims do not belong in this country.
And what you just did, what you just did is ascribed that to me, saying that's very clearly where you're heading.
I didn't ascribe that thought to you. When you made fun of the guy,
then where was I heading?
Then I was like, okay.
Where was I heading?
Huh?
Where was I heading?
Josh, finish your thought. Apparently, I can't say anything right now, or you're a racist. So I'm gonna not say anything.
So gross. It's so gross. Okay.
I haven't said anything. Finish your thought.
Sure. Okay. The other story. Maybe this will show it a little better. Okay. This was just reported. There's a man in Minneapolis. I have way too many tabs open. A guy named Mitchell Erickson. He was just mugged at gunpoint by two black teenagers. They demanded his car keys so they could take his car or they're going to shoot him. He accidentally gave them his home keys because he was flustered because there was a gun in his face. They got frustrated, ran off and stole a different car. He called the cops, then immediately regretted it, told the cops he didn't want to press charges, and then told the news, sorry, I called the cops. I shouldn't have done that. That could have put those boys in danger. Cops probably would have killed them. This is really interesting. Why would this guy who just had a gun put in his face be sad that he called the cops because they were black kids? Because this is to Tom's point. The last thing he wants to do, he'd rather get mugged at gunpoint than be perceived as a racist. This is precisely to Tom's point. That's the new perception.
Can you post that story? I can't find any of these stories on Google.
I will give it to you right now. Somebody say something while I give this to Ryan.
Well, maybe this is a question I'm thinking of is, can we agree that criticism of our immigration policy is often perceived as racist?
Explain what you mean.
Yeah.
Like if I'm like, hey, I really want, there's certain groups, that I don't want coming into this country because I just don't think they mix well with us, like with our culture. Is that racist? Right? Is that like,
I mean, why are you saying it? Are you saying it because there's a specific subset of people who culturally are very different, or are you saying it because these people have a brown skin?
Right.
And you see what I'm saying? Like, I think that's actually quite different, right? So if you're like, Hmong people are polygamists, and I don't think they're going to mesh well in rural Minnesota, right? I mean, maybe they'd fit fine in rural Utah, but like culturally there are differences, and I think those differences are difficult to overcome. I'd be like, okay, like you can have that opinion, that's fine. But if you say, people with brown skin, I don't think they should come to the U.S. regardless of whether they.
Who's saying it's based on skin color?
Let me finish, please. Right.
I can see where you're heading with this.
If that's the basis, and there are brown people in England, right, who could be very conservative, right? They could be part of the Tory party and like are millionaires and just paid $1 million to get their Trump ticket into the country. And if somebody's saying, no, you're brown skinned, I don't want you in the country, that seems problematic, right? Like, why would we do that just on the basis of somebody's skin color without recognizing anything about cultural differences, values, anything like that? That seems problematic to me. So, are you making a distinction between culture versus race?
Right. Well, so them talking about the Somali, like there was a lot of criticism about Somalis, and I think there was some, I don't know, am I wrong in that Trump, I think, said something about not having Somalis, like,
for sure. He went after all Somalis.
Yes, right?
Yes.
And he's making, and like, it's an interesting thing because you've got, I did bring up the stat of like the number of Somalis that are on welfare and have continued to be on welfare in Minnesota above the average citizen. And it was like, there seems to be, and then we have a number of fraud cases, right? Are all Somalis doing this? No, right? You're like, are all fraudsters? Probably not. But is there a net, like we want groups that are gonna, like we can, it would be great if we can just like everyone, we could give them a test and be like, are you going to add value to our country or not when they come in? But sometimes we can't do that, but we have to categorize people into certain groups and say, hey, listen, there's a propensity here for violence. There's a propensity here for fraud. There's a
But
taking
as soon
advantage
as
of
you
the
do
system.
that, you're a racist. Second you do that, you're racist.
Well,
That's the perception. That's the
can
problem.
well, it is. I think
You're
it is
just-
perceived.
Is this going to be a conversation, or are you just going to assert this, and then if I challenge it, you're going to lose your
No,
mind? Josh?
challenge away. But I mean, I challenged who's saying what you said a second ago. Who's saying no dark skinned people? I haven't heard anybody say that.
Sure, because that crosses from implied racism to explicit racism. Do you see the difference? That if you're like,
Ryan,
all
Absolutely.
Somalis who happen to be black don't belong in this country, but I'm not going to mention that they're black. I'm just going to say Somalis, right? Has Trump
Yeah.
said the same thing about Norwegians? He's like, nope, no Norwegians are allowed in this country. No, he's going to go after left-leaning Norwegians. He doesn't want them in this country. Do you see the difference?
Yes, but that's such a weird jump because
No, I
Norwegians
don't think it's a
aren't
weird jump.
defrauding the government to the tune of billions of dollars.
And-
That's a
and-
weird jump. That's the
And
problem.
there are no white-skinned people who have ever done that.
Sure, but they're not doing it in massive groups, concentrated in one region.
No, quite literally, they are the biggest people, like the biggest fraudsters in the country are
The
white-skinned
politicians?
people. Yes,
Politicians.
white-skinned people.
Okay, sure.
They're the biggest fraudsters.
Okay,
and no one's blaming their white
skin
skin
into
for
that
it.
because we obviously agree on that.
I know, but are we blaming their white skin for it?
No, but-
or their
but there's-
culture for it?
But there's another way to identify them as a group. The word politician.
Sure,
So they're
that's great.
easily identified.
Okay.
How do you identify?
I agree. Let's blame their culture.
My gosh. See, you don't even want to talk about the problem.
I'm trying to talk about it. Whenever
No,
I
you
try
just-
and say something, you're like, but you disagreed with me. Yeah.
Okay,
I
how
can
do we blame their
disagree.
culture? Let's blame their culture. How does
it-
that help?
That's wonderful.
But I do want to say, like, I do think, Ryan, if you are like the two Republicans, there was two Republicans that said Muslims don't belong here.
Yes.
Like, on its head, that's probably racist, right? Or at least bigoted, right? And
Yes.
that's
I mean,
what
it's
you're
tricky
saying,
to call
Ryan.
it
That's-
racist because Islam isn't a race, right? I mean, it's not even an ethnicity. It's a culture, right?
Right,
It's a religion. So
it's a religion.
Trump's breaking up. Is he breaking up for you?
And
yeah,
Ryan?
it's breaking up for me.
there's plenty of Muslims that are probably like great people and a great, wonderful Americans, right?
Yes. I was just on the phone with one
But like,
2 nights ago. He's from Iran, and I was calling to check in on his family. He's a wonderful guy, right? Do I agree with
Yeah.
everything that he believes? No, but he's an immigrant from Iran, right? First generation immigrant from Iran. Wonderful guy. He's raising 2 beautiful kids in Southern California. One of his kids, his oldest one, just finished college and is on his way to become a physician. What's the issue, right? He's a good guy.
What? And you agree, Josh, or like, I don't know if that the statement like that. It's an interesting statement because
The problem. Well, okay, so segging out of what Ryan just said. Okay, he has a friend who's a great guy. He's very clearly successful here in America, first generation immigrant. These 2 kids that committed the terrorist attack, right? They're second generation. Their parents were from Afghanistan, I believe, doing very well. The parents of the one kid live in a multi-million-dollar home, but for some reason they hate America and they're terrorists, and they are copying ISIS tactics, and they wanted to murder more people than the Boston Marathon, right? I would agree. I'm not anti-Muslim. Okay, I know some very lovely Muslim people, but as a group, you know, Muslims, and we could get into the whole why of it. They tend to commit more terrorism. Okay, more violent acts of terrorism. Are you raising your hand?
Fact check. Can I just do a quick fact check?
Whatever. Sure.
So you do realize that white Americans have killed more Americans in terrorist attacks than Muslims have.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on. Sorry. I'm trying not to
I
interrupt
don't
you.
want to talk about this anymore. Okay, so Muslims don't have a propensity. I mean, we've had how many Muslim terrorist attacks in the last week since the start of the Iran war?
Like three, something
Yeah,
like that. It's
so
been
3
3
in the
weeks.
last week.
3 weeks since the Iran war
Okay, so
started,
3 in the
just to
last
clarify.
3 weeks. Okay.
Yep.
And they're a minority. There are a lot more white people here than there are Muslims, well, white
Let's
non-Muslims, I
go
guess
with,
I'd
there
say.
you go. Thank you. There are a lot of
Okay.
non-Muslim people compared to Muslim people.
Okay, so the stats are probably a little misleading when it comes to overall terror attacks. Whatever. Okay. Or maybe it's more accurate to pick on the Somalis. Okay. There was a whole bunch of fraud. There was a whole bunch of welfare, all sorts of problems with the Somali community. Does that necessarily, on its face, mean that all Somalis are bad? Obviously not. But is there a problem with this community? Yes. Are they adding to the country or subtracting from the country? Well, how do we figure this out? How do we figure who we want here and who we don't want here when there are obviously problems with immigrants that are taking advantage of the system because we can't talk about racism. And as to Tom's original point, because we've gotten off target here, you cannot be perceived as a racist or you're done. That's what's in the zeitgeist. That's why all of these news media outlets didn't even want to talk about the fact that these terrorists were Muslim. Because if anybody says, well, that's a pretty racist thing to say, you're done. And that's the cardinal sin now. That I'm just agreeing with Tom's overall point. But you can't talk about that. I can't say that there is a problem with the Somalis and we need to figure out some way to vet them without being perceived as a racist, without being saying, well, that's pretty bigoted. Not all Somalis are bad. Well, okay. Then I guess we just won't talk about it. I guess we'll just let them keep defrauding the government.
So, can I respond, Tom? Do you want to respond?
Yeah, Ryan, I want to hear you.
All right. I think what we've got, Josh, is a bit of a false dichotomy, right? That you're basically saying either we can't say anything, right? Or you're going to be called a racist, or I get to say whatever I want. Okay. And you're not allowed to call me a racist. And I think really what you need is just a slight in between point, right? And again, here's a shout out to all of your friends who listen to this on a racism scale, right? But all I'm going to say is, what if instead of saying there's a problem with all of the Somali community on the planet and therefore we must do something about it, to saying there were a couple of hundred Somalis who were immigrants in Minnesota who appeared to be defrauding the government. What was going on in that specific community? If you say there's a problem with Somalis, yeah, you sound kind of bigoted towards Somalis. But if you say this small group of Somali immigrants seem to have an issue, now you're carving out a very specific subset and not attacking an entire nationality, right? I think that's an important distinction. And I don't think anybody would say, like, no, 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 you can't say the word Somali. If you want to say these 200 Somalis were defrauding the government, okay, yep, let's have a conversation about that. I think that's different.
Two things, Ryan. Do you agree with that statement then, that there is a problem with this certain segment, this micro community of Somalis?
Yes, 100%. So all our listeners can hear, if they're defrauding the government and it's because they've got social ties in their immigrant community, that is a very serious problem and we should address that. I'm totally fine saying that.
And the second one is, do you agree with the statement that I made about that there is, it's hard to criticize immigration without being attacked, without being in jeopardy of being attacked as a racist?
I mean, okay, this is going to sound weird, right? A year and a half ago, maybe. I think it would have been closer to that. Today, right? Thanks to the current administration, they've moved the envelope to where you can basically say whatever you want about anybody, and it's not going to get you kicked out of any political office. No one's going to say anything about you. To give an illustration, I just saw this. This happened this week in Australia. Okay, last week, I guess. Last week in Australia, politician was being put up by a major party, and it turns out he had said some really awful things about LGBTQ individuals and migrants. And it was on a podcast like 3 or 4 years ago. he hadn't disavowed any of it, right? He still believed it. That came to
Mhm.
light, and it was disqualifying. His party removed him from the ticket.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Today, we had literally a sitting representative say Muslims should not be part of the United States. And what were the consequences?
Well, probably some backlash from one side.
What did this was in the House, right? What did Speaker
Right.
Mike Johnson say?
He said he was like, what the wording was inaccurate. What? No. Hang on, I got it here.
Look it up. But there was no attempt to reprimand this person.
Yeah,
in
there
formal
says
means.
nothing really to condemn those comments. Yeah.
Yep.
So
do you see, like, we're not Australia, right?
Right.
If that person was in Australia right now, they would have been removed from office. There would have been
Is that a good thing? You're not allowed
yeah,
to say
I
that?
do want to know. Is that would that be?
What-
Is it appropriate?
Okay, so my point was, I think the whole tenor has shifted to where
Yes.
now it's perfectly
I agree.
fine
I
to say
agree with
to say
Yeah.
pretty blatantly
The-
racist things.
It's not
right?
that the tenor shifted,
No
the
Muslims,
pendulum has swung.
and that's fine, right? And I'm not disagreeing. I'm saying what the representative said, right? Muslims should not be allowed in the United States. Like, I have a hard time calling that racist, but it's clearly a bigoted statement,
Right.
right? So
I'll agree
can
with
we
that.
all agree like that is too far?
But why did the pendulum swing? That's kind of the question. Why
Totally
did we go
fine with
from
that.
you can't talk about racism to now we're kind of celebrating it? You can't be
Well,
bigoted. Now we're kind of celebrating it. The
Right.
pendulum swung. There's no middle ground. What you said a second ago, I actually agreed with you when you said what I was saying wasn't a false dichotomy, but there is a middle ground. You can't say, yeah, there's a community of Somalis specifically that were a problem. Okay,
Yes.
Trump's. I agree, 100%. Common ground. Trump's take was, you know, all Somalis are
Yes.
pedophiles and dog screwers or something, right?
Yes. Something
Okay.
bad. Yes.
Yeah, that's too far. I agree. But why did the pendulum swing from here to here?
Okay. Well, I think that's a different point. And what your point is, we went really well,
But it's
and now
related.
we're swinging the other way.
Yes,
Fine.
but it's all
okay.
related.
But why do you then have to swing with it? Why can't you just do what I said, which is 10 years ago, if you had said, right, there's a small community of Somali immigrants in Minnesota who are defrauding the government, and it seems to be tied to their social networks.
How did I swing with it?
Now, do you see what I'm saying? So
Yes, but why are you accusing me of swinging?
No.
with it?
I'm not accusing you. I'm saying, why do we need to swing with it? Why couldn't we always just take the middle ground instead of blanketing out an entire culture or nationality or anything? Just say, there's a problem in this small group of people. Okay, cool.
Because you just admitted it a year and a half ago. We couldn't take the middle ground. We couldn't.
No,
even
I think
talk
you still
about
could have
it.
taken the middle ground.
No, you can't. But during
We
Obama's
can't go back in
administration,
time. You can't definitively
during
say like, you
Obama's
couldn't have done that.
administration, when this all kicked off, I couldn't criticize the man because he was black.
What does his being black have to do with anything?
Exactly, but I couldn't criticize his socialist policies without being called racist. You accused me of being racist back then. You've since apologized. I don't want to bring it back up, but that was the tenor. That's why it has shifted.
I would hope
so
that I
hard
wasn't
the other
saying
way.
you were a racist for criticizing a socialist policy. That has nothing to do with his race.
You did, and other people did.
So let's not bring that up.
I don't want to bring that up, but that's why the tenor shifted so hard. That's why the pendulum swung. When one side is completely silenced for 10 years, and now we have an immigration problem, which Trump's trying to fix. Now he's fixing it in the most heavy-handed way possible. That's why there's no middle ground. That's why I'm trying to answer your question. Why can't we just go to the middle ground? Why can't we just be a little more diplomatic and and obvious about it? Let's address the problem instead of just making blanket statements. That's why, because one side was silenced for 10 years. So now we're going to swing back to, okay, let's be bigoted. And what's going to happen in 10 years, right? We're going to swing back the other way because there's no nuance to anything. There's no middle ground. That's the problem.
Can you just help me and say they instead of we?
No.
What if you and like all of our listeners just made the statement right now of like, I will not do that. I'll stay in the middle ground, and then we can have real conversations and find common ground. And the talking heads on TV who have to go radical because that's how they get views and listeners, they are going to swing back and forth. Why don't we, as the American center, just stay in the middle?
No.
So don't include yourself in that. You said
we don't have any conflict on the
just say
podcast. How much have we agreed on the last couple podcasts?
A lot.
Okay, so I'm coming full guns blazing today. I'm going to be right on the line of being bigoted, even though I don't want to be.
Just say they,
just to
Josh.
Provoke the podcast.
I
But let
know.
me ask you something. Why then did Mamdani and all of these news media agencies, why did they omit that the two terrorists were Muslim?
So I would not be surprised. And I don't know the answer to that, right? I'm not inside their heads. So I don't know the answer. And I don't think you know the answer to that. You're going to speculate, right? I will speculate on Mamdani. I'm not going to say anything about any of the other news outlets, right? Mamdani's Muslim. He knows the optics of this. The optics look terrible for him, right? So if he comes out and he's like, I got some Muslims who tried to blow up some anti-Muslim protesters. Like, come on. That looks terrible for Mamdani.
Unless he does it just how you did it. Huh? If he came out just like you did with that delivery, it's actually pretty funny.
It would be, right? Yeah. Like, props to him for owning it. But
he didn't own it.
He didn't own it. No, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, if he had done what I just did, props to him for owning it. But like, he's never going to do that. The optics look terrible for a Muslim politician in the U.S.
Okay, so
to point out Muslim attacks.
Why did CNN and the other news media do this?
No idea. I don't follow them.
Yes, you do.
No, I literally don't follow those news outlets. I don't know what happened. Okay. I don't really care. If they botched it, they botched it. If they did it intentionally,
it's an optics thing.
That's gross. Okay, don't do that. The news outlets that I read, they didn't do that. Like, I told you what I knew. I knew that they were Muslims from the second I heard the story. That was on NPR and BBC and Associated Press.
Okay. I want to kind of keep moving this along in a certain way, but I want to know, okay, if we could find a way that we could like screen immigrants that was like empirically objective and could like screen them for propensities for fraud, violence, or any other like, criminal activity. I mean, can we agree?
Murdering Americans with bombs.
I would be 100% okay with that if it is evenly applied to people from every single country who want to immigrate to this country.
Yeah.
Right. If we only apply that to Afghanis or Somalis, then I think we've got a problem, right? We're making assumptions about certain groups of people.
We're saying, like, if you score an IQ of 90 or less on the IQ test, we found that there's a propensity for violence or criminal behavior, right? But then we only gave it to Afghanis when they came into the country. Then you'd be like, okay, no, that's not going to fly, right?
Yeah. If we're doing that for people from Switzerland,
Sweden.
People from Australia, from New Zealand, if it doesn't matter across the board, right? Fine. And here's how empirical I am. So just to give you a sense, right? I'm thinking in my own mind right now, right? I could come up with a regression model with lots of predictors, and we could put those predictors in, and we could say people who look like this are more likely to do this. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's totally fine. That might even include religion. It might include gender. Mm-hmm. It might include age. It might include nationality.
Definitely include all of those things.
It probably does. Here's the deal. Okay. If somebody is immigrating from Canada and still meets all the other criteria, they still need to be screened. Right. Mm-hmm. So just because one person is slightly higher than another person, that doesn't mean we only screen out those people and we're like, well, we're going to give really deep screen. Like, you guys all get anal cavity scans because you're from Iran, but all the people from England, like, here's $1,000 to immigrate to our country. We're not going to ask you any questions. Right.
Right.
That seems problematic.
What's that ticking sound coming from your anus? That's okay. Just go. You're fine.
You're from England. You're good.
We love English bombs. They're so good. Okay. All right. There's a little more controversial. What if like, so say, what if, okay, what if there's a committee, a panel that's like, goes through and it's like, okay, I'm going to pick on Somalis and be like, we've looked at Somalis and immigrants and we've found that, yeah, this is a small group, but on a per capita basis, we finding that they're using more resources, they're frauding us more, and they're more criminal activities. And it's still a minority group, but as a whole, like they're actually like per capita, they have a higher propensity to do that. And, you know, due to lack of resources and other screening material, well, we're just going to ban they just can't come in. Is that racist? Is this appropriate? And is it racist, right?
Okay.
Like, would you support it?
Well, I'm gonna.
And Josh, I want to hear from you too on this.
Josh, do you want to start? Because I'm going to be wonky and geeky.
No, I don't think it's racist. If you have like the empirical data saying, hey, people from this country, it doesn't have to be Somalia, okay, whichever country, they're not really adding anything to our country. They're just a leech on our society. Yeah, there's a few outliers, but for the most part, these guys are not helping out, and we don't have a good way of screening them.
Not
even say they're bad.
I would say not even if they're for the most part leeching the country. What if like for the most part they're okay, but per capita they're the worst offenders as far as immigrants, right? That we found that they're the worst group. Like, can we just be like, yeah, we just don't want you here. Like, you're just too much trouble. Like,
well, I don't think it's racist. Okay, just on its head. Mm-hmm. I don't know that it's smart if there's a lot of people coming in that are actually helping, and then you have a very small subset, it's probably not a good idea. But if it's like 50-50 and we have better people coming from other places, just as a purely business decision, it kind of makes sense to be like, no, we're kind of done with you guys because you're not helping us. Get your crap together before you want to come here. Because we do have an immigration problem. We had a crisis there for a minute. We're trying to get it back under control, but yeah, there's a problem. It's a real problem. There's a real problem. So I think there's better ways to approach it than that. I don't know if I'd call it racist. But as just from a mathematical situation, it probably makes sense, right?
You're saying that's just lazy of the government to be like, yes, we don't want this country at all, right?
There's probably better approaches. But if that's the best way that our really sucky, inefficient government could do it, well, maybe, but we should probably do that with multiple countries that aren't sending their best and brightest here, because we can only take so many before it affects us. I would like to be more charitable, but if you take so many people onto the ship and your ship sinks, well, now who are you helping? Now you can't help anybody.
Right, Ryan, you're making lots of faces.
He's got a smug face over there. It looked like his head was about to explode at one point. So you better get it out, Ryan.
All right. So I told you I was going to be a little geeky and wonky.
Yeah.
Here's the deal.
Nuanced is the term.
This is geeky. First generation immigrants are about 60% less likely to be incarcerated than American born individuals. Okay. So they're just like substantially less likely to commit crimes. So let's just take a hypothetical. Yeah. So hypothetically, we've got country X in Africa, right? And we've got, 10,000 immigrants from country X in Africa. And their crime rate is, 5 out of 100,000 are incarcerated. Okay. In the US, it would be something like 10 out of 100,000 are incarcerated, right?
Because we have a higher incarceration rate.
Because we have a higher incarceration rate than those people, right?
Right.
And let's say that those people are 0.25 points higher than people from a neighboring country. Right. So what you were describing is kind of that to me, is you're like, well, those people are a little bit higher than the other people who have immigrated, even though all of them are less likely to commit crimes than US born Americans. Right. So let's ban those people, right? Now, if you found a population where the crime rate from those people, right, was like, 50 times? I'd even give you like 5 times as high as US born Americans. Okay, fine. Now we're talking, right? Now you've got a genuine criminal population that is disturbing. But right now, none of them are higher than US born Americans.
But
Well,
you're just
you're
talking about
throwing out a
crime.
well,
Like,
Yeah.
you're talking about incarceration because
Yes,
we
incarceration.
have one of the highest incarceration rates in the
Well,
world.
that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about because it's a solid number, right? So we have a solid number that we can
Right.
use as
Yes.
far as like behaving illegally. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
it's a pretty easy way to quantify illegal behavior is who's incarcerated.
Well, you're taking it from the country, right?
Well, I'm
You're
saying
like,
first generation immigrants in general. Yeah, first generation immigrants in general are 60% less likely to be incarcerated in the US
right, okay,
than
okay.
US born Americans.
I gotcha. And then yeah, and you're saying so their incarceration rates are lower, and regardless of the country, they're just going to be lower.
They are. So you would have to have like one specific country. Again, pick the country. Let's say that it was on
like,
par.
this is the worst. They're the worst of all the immigrants, but yet they're still lower than the average American.
So if we got a country that was actually like 5 times higher,
right
now
then
we're talking. Now I'd be like, oh yeah, thank you for the empirical data.
This is a problematic group.
Bingo. Right. But until they actually reach the level of US born Americans in terms of incarceration rates, I'm going to be pretty skeptical. Right. Like we're the biggest problem, not the immigrants.
You're going to be skeptical that the policy isn't just racist.
Yes. Right. So, I mean, if that was like, okay, Swedes, right, you're 0.25 higher than everybody else, you're out. We're banning you. Right. I'd be like, oh wow, that's not a racist policy at all, right? You're going on very fine margins, but like you targeted white people from northern Europe, right? What are the odds they're going to do that though, Tom? Right. So let's say that it is Somalis. Let's say Somalis have instead of 5 out of 100,000 incarcerations, right? It's 5.25, and they're still well below the 10 for Americans.
Right.
Are we going to pick out the Somalis and be like, it is 0.25, which on that scale, right? I mean, it's like a 2% difference, right? It's like a pretty meaningless difference.
Yes.
We're not letting you in the country.
You're the worst. Sorry. And I mean, honestly, it's like you're a guest in the country. I'm expecting you to behave better than us, right?
And they generally do.
And your stats are saying they do. But this is the worst group, and that these 5 countries are the worst groups. These are the worst of the best. Then let's. I don't think if this is the easiest way we can measure it, and it's empirical, and it's like I would be fine with it, right? And be like, I want the slackers out. So like, and did I just target a bunch of people that were probably really great, but it was a few bad apples that spoiled it? Then I'm like, it sucks. But like, I'd actually, because it is empirical, and it is like, and yes, it's not fair, but there's on the premise that like, you got to be really good to be here because it's a privilege to be here. And so
if you can get rid of all the slacker immigrants and all the slacker, liberals,
Americans, slacker liberals.
Are you agreeing with
Ryan? He's trying so hard tonight, like just launching bomb after bomb.
Right. All right. Is Ryan done with his geeky stuff? I zoned out.
No. Are you agreeing with me, Ryan, on that? If we
all those numbers, the fake numbers he did.
Times. Yes.
No, if it was the top 5 countries, and we're like, hey, you just got to be good to be here, and these are the top 5 worst countries. We don't want them anymore.
Okay,
it's empirical.
I would, and again, like I appreciate the attempt at empiricism. If it's still well below the U.S. born rate, they're actually on a net benefit.
But why are you just going off of criminality? Because it could be on government welfare. Do they have jobs? Or are they just sitting here in somebody's basement, family member's basement? You'd have to measure all those things, in my opinion. Because I like your scale. It makes sense, right? But you're strictly going off of criminality, and that's not the only measure of if somebody's a net benefit to the country, right?
Well, there is, and Ryan, would you agree that like there's probably some skewing of the data in that immigrants don't want cause trouble, so there's less reporting. Like they're a domestic violence issue. They're not going to report it because they don't want to. Like, all right, I don't want to do. I don't want to get in trouble here.
Yes.
Like, we're just not
Car
gonna call
accidents.
it. Not calling. Yeah, car accidents. Right.
I probably domestic violence, right? Like that one makes sense. But the car accidents are really tricky because if one person is, legal and the other is not, yes, they could try and run off, right? But it's pretty easy to catch them today. Like all these cars now have dash cams. Like they're going to get caught. And here's like the fundamental idea is if you're an illegal immigrant and you get arrested, you're going to get deported, right? Right now, things are so complicated. They're just like, we're looking to fire everybody, right? But that was kind of always the case. Like if you were illegal and you did something against the law, you got in an accident, you didn't have a license, you did all this, you're going to get deported. That was true under Obama. That was true under
but you could
Biden.
get right back in.
Fine. Okay. But you did get deported because you engaged in criminal behavior. I just saw it the other day, I want to say last week, because of the fact that they don't get benefits, but most of them actually pay taxes. On par, immigrants actually contribute more to the system than they get back from the system because they can't get Social Security. They can't get any of those benefits.
They pay into Social Security.
They pay into all of it, but they don't get any of it because they're here illegally. So, I mean, if you could find other metrics that demonstrated like clear abuses of our welfare system, which is terrible, right? I mean, where they can take advantage of welfare systems is in real welfare states, right? Ours is pretty awful. So could they maybe? Sure, I'm down for looking at those numbers. But again, what I would want to see is where are U.S. born Americans, right? So we can't just do it like immigrants versus immigrants, right? It should be immigrants versus U.S. born Americans.
I don't see why not.
No. That's dumb.
You guys aren't doing the math. This is just stats, right? You've got
You're
people who are
making
less
the
likely
case
to
that
engage
they're
in
actually
crimes
a net
coming into the
benefit,
U.S.
as
than
long
people
as-
who are already here.
Again,
Why would we not want the people who are less criminal coming into the country?
well,
Like,
you're
it's just
so-
math.
again,
Everything.
you're solely focused on criminality. You're not focused on any other things or culture. What we're really seeing now is a clash of cultures. It's not a clash of criminality because the criminals are the outliers for the most part. It's a clash of cultures. That's the bigger issue and much harder to measure.
Are you moving goalposts on me though, Josh? So
No.
I'm trying to say,
I don't even know where we're going with this very esoteric argument. I don't even know what we're doing anymore. I'm just,
we were going with Tom's hypotheticals of like, is it okay to ban people from a specific country? I gave you a clear one, incarceration rates. And then you said, no, well, what about something else? Right. And I don't think you said no. You said, well, maybe there are other
I
metrics,
agreed.
right?
I agreed with you.
Right.
But I've always agreed with you on that statistic, but that's not the only metric to measure if somebody's a net
It would be
benefit.
a pool of scores, based on a number of different metrics, right? That'll
Yeah.
give you like your contribution score. What's your contribution to the U.S.?
Yeah.
Oh,
That doesn't sound like a Black Mirror episode at all.
It absolutely would be, but it's even more complicated than that because you could
really want to go down that path.
You could have all of these head-to-head metrics, but then you
gosh.
have to take the more nebulous culture thing. If an immigrant is a 4.8, but I'm only a 4.6, but I have the existing culture and I buy into it, maybe I get an extra bonus 2 points for culture because there's no cultural problem with me fitting in, right? Does that make sense? Culture is a problem. It's a real
Your
thing.
dystopian idea is horrific and straight out of George Orwell's 1984.
Wow.
We're going to give everybody a contribution score to the country. Guess who
That wasn't
actually
my
already
thing?
does-
That was Tom's thing.
Guess who does this? China does this. They already do this. That's where it came from as a Black Mirror episode.
I
'cause
didn't
China
say
does it.
for individuals. I'm saying for countries, but
Based on
how they're
individuals.
as a collective, yes, how they've done. But I'm not going to be like your contribution score. It is written on your forehead next to
We
your
don't want that.
barcode.
Yes,
Scan it
let's-
in. Oh,
let's not
he's
do
bad.
that. Yeah.
all
Again,
right,
like
trying to get
if you want to
agreement.
come up with some matrix, fine, right? But it has to be a very clear comparison to the existing population. I think the existing population is going to lose out on most of these metrics.
It would have to be super compelling bad for them to
Yeah.
you to convince you that they're worse than Americans, just the general population.
in collective, right? So because you're
Right.
you're basically saying everybody in this country is now disallowed. And who knows, right? There could be the most saintly of saintly people there who is also an uber
Yeah.
genius and about to change the world. And you're like, sorry, everybody in
Really?
your group is
Your country
disallowed now.
sucks.
From
Yeah.
from Somalia, the uber genius from Somalia.
Careful, Josh.
We ran some numbers, and it turns out Americans need to get out of the country. So, sorry, that's the worst country score by
If
far.
Ryan was in charge, that's what would happen. I would be living in Somalia, and all of them would be here.
Yeah, right. All right.
That was a
Okay,
good summation,
that-
Tom. I actually really
That
liked
that would actually be a really good Black Mirror episode.
that
where
would
the
be a
government
really
is,
good
is
Black
like,
Mirror
you know what? We're
episode.
getting rid of all of these native people because their score's not high
just
enough.
based on your scores. Your
Yeah.
scores are worse.
We want to
Sorry.
be objective here. Yeah, we wanted to get to the other thing. Is there anything else we want to? I thought that was a really good conversation, and we got agreement on a number of things, and there was good debate. So I like that. But anything anyone wants
See,
to add?
Ryan? See, Tom gave me compliments tonight because I went hard at you.
Yeah.
He never, if I just agree, if we're just docile and nice to each other, Tom hates it. He sends me death threats.
Yeah. I'm like, step up your game, Josh. No? Okay. All right. Let's talk. Let's talk about I got it up here. Let's see. This is Trump's Homeland Security pick. Markwayne
Mullin. Yeah.
What a weird name. So he got basically, let me try and sum this up, Ryan, and then you can add to it.
Sure.
So yeah, he basically made some bets on Chevron, and just before the U.S. took out Maduro, and Chevron happens to be the only still working oil company that's like it's a U.S. oil company that's still doing operations in Venezuela. After the operation and Maduro's removed, the stock skyrockets, and he made a bunch of money off of that. So this happened. I mean, and just on a general thing, yeah, we have a lot of congressmen and women that are making a lot of money and in the stock markets. And is this based off of inside knowledge? Is it not? Is they just really smart? Right. So yeah, it's a thing though.
So I'm guessing we can make this episode like the shortest and easiest one ever, right?
I think we're gonna have a lot of agreement.
Yeah. So let me just summarize. All politicians are corrupt. All of them are engaged in insider trading. They're all making millions of dollars, and it's both Democrats and Republicans. Josh, can we just agree and call it a night?
All of them except for Markwayne Mullin, because any man with two first names for a name, that's a real man. His name is Markwayne. I agreed with you before we even started the podcast. They should all be in jail for this.
Okay,
it is so illegal. I mean, it should be illegal. It's so dishonest. He makes a big multi-million-dollar bet 5 days before the invasion or before the snatching of Maduro.
Right.
Yeah, he's just that smart. He just knew. It's gross. It makes me sick, and all of it, and it keeps happening. And like I told you guys on that one podcast during the State of the Union, when Trump announced that he was going to crack down on insider trading, and I said, did Nancy Pelosi stand up for that? Because she's one of the most guilty of it, but they're all guilty of it. They're all standing up, clapping, going, "Yeah, right. Get rid of that insider trading that we all do."
So part of the reason why I wanted to bring this up, you guys have mentioned Nancy Pelosi for a long time, right? You keep bringing her up as like the ultimate.
I know where you're going with this.
No. And so I did actually check that at one point. Now, I don't think I ever brought it up, but I checked it. And sure enough, she's actually done quite well when it comes to her trades in the market, right? She consistently beats the S&P 500 every year, which is gross, right? Is genuinely gross. So I had to pull this one up because I'm both siding it. Right. So I want to be very clear. Pelosi, it looks like she's doing this. Right. I'm not even going to fight that. I'm not challenging it. If she's consistently beating the market by double digits, something's off, right? I just wanted to show it's not just her, it's both
Yeah.
sides. Just both
and
sides.
and I'll go further, Ryan. Some of the best performing ones are Republicans. Like I think the top 5 are Republicans.
Oh,
Are
really?
they?
Yeah,
I didn't know
like
that.
and
That
I think they're
surprised me.
smaller, bigger gains, but like smaller amounts or something like that. But but they're just doing better. So anyway, but so yes, it's happening. It's a bipartisan.
They agree. They agree
Yeah.
on
One thing they can
corruption.
agree on.
We're all corrupt. Okay, so I'm glad that we started with agreement now, and I don't know if we'll get disagreement here. Part of the reason why I want to raise up is like, what do we do about this now?
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
and it's all hypothetical. Obviously, none of the three of us have any power to do anything about it. But in your dream world, how would this look? And I'm trying to be practical about it because it's like, what if you want to run for office, right? And
Right.
not that any of us necessarily want to run for office, but like how would you move forward with a specific policy that if you're coming into office and you've got, your retirement savings from having worked a good reasonable job for the last 20 years, what do you get to do with that? Like how does that
Mm-hmm.
work? So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I'm really intrigued by it is like what's a reasonable solution to this instead of just like a only poor people can hold office and they don't ever get to make money.
Right. Yeah, I don't.
Oh,
It's a great question. I don't know. I sorry, Josh. I'll just I'll give my thoughts, which are not really
No, go,
good.
go,
That
go.
I,
I
I
didn't understand
think
the initial question.
I think I read that judges are supposed to. They can't have anything that might be a conflict of interest, right? And so a lot of them will sell different things, or at least disclose that they own something. And I think if ever like there's a conflict with a case or something, then they have to be like, okay, well, this could be a conflict. And I mean, but I've heard issues where that gets abused too, or they didn't disclose something, and this happens fairly, sometimes. I have no idea. Like I think pie in the sky is like sell everything and don't trade any stocks, but it's like is that
But
reasonable,
you shouldn't
right?
necessarily be punished, right? You don't want to
Yeah.
punish them for being politicians.
Right.
And I can tell you, like the classic approach is supposed to be a blind trust. That's the idea. So prior to Trump, right? Some presidents, I'm not going to say any of them were clean. So I'm not going to say that at this point. You guys have convinced me all the politicians are corrupt, but some of them have taken their assets and put it into what's called a blind trust, where there's a financial advisor who does all the investing, right?
Mm.
But they don't ever tell the person who owns it what they're investing
Mhm.
in. It's completely blind. So there's,
So
it's
like,
like arm's length. They have no idea what's
and
in the
they
in the
give
stuff.
it to like a trusted group
Yep.
or associate that they're like, you're in
Yep.
charge. Don't tell me.
Exactly. And they don't get to know, right? So it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
here's your money, right? You have money and it grew this much, but I'm not going to tell you what it's invested in. That way you don't
Mm-hmm.
know if I make this deal with Raytheon, right? Like I just made $1 million in my stock, right?
Yeah.
So if they do that, right, that's the theoretical approach. To what extent those actually work or they're actually policed, I have no idea.
I
Josh,
like the
blind
theory
trust.
of that. Yeah, like the theory of that is a good idea. Like if you had a lot of money invested in the S&P 500 before you went into office, then I don't know that it'd be a problem to leave it there as long as there was some transparency and it wasn't obvious you were making deals with companies and that affect that mutual fund or something. But to be actively trading, I think that should just on its face be illegal. A blind trust makes sense. A broad mutual fund, or just some sort of advisor that. But again, you'd have to please the advisor because you could be calling your advisor
Mhm.
and be like, "Hey, you need to invest in Nvidia right now because I'm about to pull a doozy," right?
Yeah.
So I don't. That's a tough question, but in my mind, would it be that catastrophic for incoming politicians to either just leave what they have in the market, or they just have to pull it all out until they're done being in office? Maybe that's not the worst thing ever.
I don't think it's the worst thing ever. I think is it realistic, right? That they're gonna do that, right? It's just like yeah. they're gonna wanna be in the market. They're gonna want to be exposed.
You know what?
Ryan, do you have any? Has anyone done a blind trust? Like
I could double check, but I've definitely heard, and I think
where'd
so.
you
This
come up
became
with
an
this idea?
issue. I didn't come up with the idea. I know politicians have done it, right? So I know some have. I don't remember names off the top of my head, but if you remember, there was an issue with the Supreme Court that they had no ethics policies governing them up until just a few years ago, and there were a whole bunch of conflicts of interest, right, with members of the Supreme Court. And so finally, like all the lower courts that do have ethics policies that govern what they can and can't do. Again, to what extent they follow them, I have no idea, but they did have them. They started calling for the Supreme Court. They're like, hey, you guys are the only court in the country that has zero ethics policies, right? And, the Supreme Court was like, yeah, we'll make our own. We'll make some, right? We're good policing ourselves. Yeah, like,
well, to be fair, that's what lawyers have always done. That's the bar. Like they do police themselves. A lot of real estate agents police themselves because they don't want outside interference. They're usually actually pretty strict. So there is some precedence for the Supreme Court doing that. But at the same time, I'm just picturing Ruth Bader Ginsburg having wild ragers and lots of ecstasy and stuff because no ethics here. Who cares what we do?
Yeah, well, the other group that self-governs itself is Congress, right? And you're like,
that's problematic.
What was it, FDR? Goes through his third term, and they're like, "Oh, get him out of there. We term limits, right?" You're like, "Oh, term limits for us? Oh,
that's different.
No. We don't like those." It's just like.
So I did find two examples. It's been a while. Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan put all their assets into blind trusts when they took office.
Good on them.
So it has been done, right? It has been done.
But it was like right after that when everything, you really see the real criminal politicians taking over. Like Carter was a terrible president, but I don't think he was a out and out criminal. Basically, everybody since him has been.
Ooh, Mitt Romney when he became governor did.
Yeah. Props to Mitt. I don't know. It's an interesting question. Initially, I thought your question was how do we fix it now?
No, it's wild corruption.
No, but you're saying if we could pass a law that's like, all right, you're going to be in office, you got to put it in a blind trust, right?
Yep, done.
And
and if you don't,
I think it's a great idea.
If you don't, we execute you.
Oh, geez.
Sorry, we're going Jake. I channeled my inner Jake.
Yeah, you did.
I channeled my inner Jake, and it's like either put your money in a blind trust or we execute you.
Guillotine.
You.
I did see a funny comic the other day. There's a guy down like cleaning the guillotine, and somebody's holding the rope, and it's like raised up, and he's cleaning it, and then he lets go, and it comes down and it shaves off his beard, and the guy turns around and is like, and this is how Gillette was founded.
Jeez.
I thought it was funny. I think it was Bizarro. It was something like that.
Pretty good.
Sorry. Weird.
Pretty good.
No, I mean, you don't get to take office. Sorry. Like you do not get to take office if you do not put your money in a blind trust. And then, I think, okay. Who watches the watchers, right? That's a fair question. So let's say that we've got several dozen different major finance companies, right, that manage these blind trusts. All of them are, let's say they're all publicly traded. They have to get audited every year. Part of the auditing process could be the blind trust process, right? So you put it in, and what you get reported back to you is just how much money you made, not any stocks that you have. And if you make a call to your financial advisor and say anything about what it is you're doing, the financial advisor has to record those calls and they're public record, right? Any communication you have with your financial advisor is just public record. So if you want to call and say, how is my money doing? No one's going to complain about that. But if you're going to call and say, Raytheon, right? You're going to jail. Yeah, you're going to jail, right? I'm fine.
I'd love to see it happen. It's never going to happen. And the thing is, if you did pass that law, there would be way less politician money for us to be looking at because they wouldn't be making this money hand over fist like they do now. It's never going to happen. It's a lovely pipe dream, brother, but I like the idea.
Yeah,
luck.
that's an admirable solution. I agree. It's going to be. I mean, it would take quite an effort for anyone, like even term limits or balanced budget or any of this stuff where it's a self-governance thing, right? It's like they just don't want to do it. So I love the idea, but yeah. Kill them all. That's what
shortest episode ever.
Back to Plan B.
Yeah, I mean, I figured we would have agreement on the general point, but
yeah.
How do you solve it? I don't know. All right.
Totally. All right. Final thoughts.
Josh.
All right.
No. Yeah. We're done.
The first one where we were fighting was way more fun.
I've got to give Josh just like the little bit is like the smallest ledge to just like get a finger hold on, and then he is going to explode that into something, anything. And I know that's
the last several episodes, like we had one episode where I was actually by myself, the one with Jake and Hunter, but then like the previous three, besides that one, it was kind of Ryan and I against Tom, or I mostly agreed. Like there wasn't very many fireworks, so I had to do something. Don't want people thinking we like each other.
No,
or we could just agree.
Definitely not. No, it was good. We had some good agreements and some stuff. It was interesting to see what we agreed on, what we disagreed on.
Yeah.
All right, great episode. Okay, guys. Okay. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll talk to you later next time.
Josh, we may not always agree when it comes to politics, even though we're trying, but there is one thing we agree on. There is only one way to clean up after going to the bathroom, and that's with a Lux bidet.
I've been a proud owner of a Lux bidet for years. I have literally owned a Lux Neo 320 since 2013. That's the warm water model. Talk about happy, fun, poopy time. When I leave the bathroom, I know I'm clean and ready to talk politics in a civilized manner.
Exactly. Using a toilet without a bidet is about as uncivilized as it gets. Civil conversations demand civil hygiene practices.
And that is why our listeners should get themselves a Lux bidet.
And just to be clear, Lux is not supporting one side or the other in this podcast. They support civil conversations and clean butts.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Finding Common Battlegrounds. The music is by Ben Sound. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and not those of their employers. For more information or more episodes, you can find us at findingcommonbattlegrounds.com.